Good morning. Thank you for coming this morning. In this rebirth of something or other that this country is going through, it's in a way wonderful to be able to get together with our own neighbors and community and talk about what's next here. When we placed the ad in Town Topics, saying with the headline, "What Next?" We didn't know what was going to be. We had to place the ad before the election, and we were prepared for either possibility. The whole idea of having a "What Next?" Meeting came out, in fact, of the previous meeting. In September, the group that gathered raised some very serious questions, some very, in a way, provocative questions that we hadn't included in the agenda for that meeting. That forum focused on ideas that might be possible. There was a sort of what-if event. What if we did this, or what if we did that? And we had the great pleasure of having Robert Goldsmith, distinguished lawyer, a specialist in urban affairs, redevelopment, and planning, with us to, in effect, guide us through an idea. This is from his PowerPoint, and Bob is with us today, to take us through the possibilities of tools and instruments that we as a community don't have. We have really governments, as many of you, well, certainly some of you have pointed out. This is a place which has two governments and one political party, whereas most places have one government and two parties. Anyway, that's but it is still the case that we have structures that have accumulated over time, and perhaps there could be better ways to relate to each other, to our problems, to our solutions, to the way in which we govern ourselves and use our our resources in more effective ways. We appreciate tremendously what Bob did, and he's here and will speak to us in just a moment about his position of creating a partnership modeled on partnerships in other communities that have evolved over in the recent years. Morristown, in particular, the Morristown Partnership has been very effective in bringing government, institutions, businesses, corporations, other agencies into a working coherence for that community. And we have suggested, we proposed a what if we were to create a partnership here that included the major actors in the way in which the community is developing. And that is Bob's great contribution to it. However, from the floor, wonderful to relate, democracy sometimes does work. There were some very interesting questions and skepticism about just having such a discussion. Without having discussed the existing structures, what if they were the base of change or the base of the future? How well do they work? What might they do? So the first of the three questions that were asked today is, how well do the existing structures work and how may they evolve? The second question comes directly out of this presentation. What might new structures be? And we, in looking at where other communities within New Jersey have been working, and it's important to realize that we have to work within New Jersey. I mean, we all love Paris, and maybe we all love Newark and so forth. But the fact of the matter, Newark is in New Jersey. That we all love places elsewhere, Philadelphia, Providence, what have you. But we work within the laws of the state of New Jersey. In this country, the fundamental powers to do the kinds of things that are concerns for the community, whether it's housing, powers of government, are powers that are inherent in the state. And then we relate to them. So the so-called municipal land use law, which has about as much interest as reading the phone book to me, but it is apparently very important to understand that the municipal land use law is the basis upon which we can act, and Bob and others here know a lot about how that works. So we stuck our head out, next hour, whatever, and we proposed 3 possible structures to see how they might solve some of the problems. We have been discussing problems for 8 years, so in these proposals, these 3 structures are propositions, that one or more, and they might be combined, or one is the proposition that there be an improvement district, especially for the downtown, which is a district unto itself and much beloved and revered in the community. What might an improvement district be, and what would be the benefits and costs in that? The second kind of structure is a public authority. That is an authority formed by government. We have some public authorities. We have, in fact, in the borough, a housing authority, and I think there's a sewer authority. Check me on that. The idea of public authorities is widespread, and would there be the possibility of creating new kinds of public authorities that would serve some of our needs, such as a transportation and parking authority, or an expanded housing authority, and so forth. The third kind of structure is a community development corporation, or more simply a development corporation. Most notably effective in New Brunswick, which has been essentially the way New Brunswick has grown over the recent generation. Community Development Corporation, in the local scene, we have in fact one. We have the Princeton Community Housing, which consists of work from the university, the other institute, other institutions in town, the churches. It is really a community organization, which is a corporation that creates affordable housing. It's a targeted development corporation. There could be, for example, arguments for an economic development corporation or for a development corporation on other funds. So we're positing 3 new structures: improvement district, a public authority, thank you, and a community district. Now, having done that, having proposed it, we would appreciate if you would, when we break up into groups, if you would address those questions about that I've just posed. But do it for a specific function or site. Over the years, there have been persistent in 3 places or 3 kinds of functions: housing, transportation and mobility, and the downtown. That's not to say that we couldn't have done 7 of them, because last time we met in this room, we posited 7, but now we're down. We're using 3 as a way of understanding where we ought to be going. We might want to have additional meetings on the others, such as diversity, sustainability, such as the economy and taxes. There are a lot of ways in which you could get at these questions. We propose today to talk about 3: downtown back there, housing, and
no, other way, housing.
Downtown over there.
Mobility.
Mobility where?
There.
Over there, and housing over there. And each table will have a leader. Jim Constantine for the downtown, Carlos Rodriguez on transportation and mobility, and David Kinsey on housing. We're extremely fortunate in this community have professional planners of that real, they have an enormous amount to offer. Experience, wisdom, knowledge, and they're also willing to participate in these civic discussions. And we want to thank Dan and David, Carlos, for their willingness to do this. Okay, so that's the lay of the land for today. But I'd like to turn back to Bob Goldsmith to kind of have a pricing, a review of where we were last time, and then we'll come right into the separate groups. And later, about 11 o'clock, I suppose, the groups will report back to us about what they see with this from the perspective of theirs. Peter Kahn points out, I didn't mention, the three questions are: one, how well do the existing structures work? Two, how might new structures help? And third, how might consolidation help? And they're interrelated, and all three are brought to the table.
Thank you, Bob. Good morning, people. Maybe you can give me some guidance as to what you'd like me to focus on, but just some thoughts. First, okay. First, just to preface it, I think you guys have a great community. I don't live here. I live in Morristown, which I think in some ways is somewhat of a comparable community in terms of a diverse community. We also have the township that surrounds the town. The town is 2.9 square miles. The township is 14 square miles. I've lived there for about 35 years. Something that Peter just pointed out to me is that the town and township are both democratic. We don't have that luxury in Morris Township. They're completely extreme. My favorite partner, Arthur Greenbaum, who's been practicing law for I think 59 years now, says that people of goodwill can often achieve a good result. And my sense of this community is that there are many people of goodwill here, which is a good starting place. Having said that, at Bob's request, I came down again to just kind of briefly review the idea that given that there are people of goodwill and there's a desire to move things along, by the way, a footnote, I think we saw remarkable change in the last week, and I think it's an enlightening event that we all perceived in the last week. That is the election of Barack Obama. So things can change, and I think that's worth noting. Moving away from that context into the more narrow context here, downtowns are great things. I get a sense that there's a recognition that you've got a great thing here. There was an article in the Ledger yesterday. It was quoting a Southern minister who said, "We ain't where we should have been. We ain't where we want to be. We won't be where we want to be tomorrow, but we ain't where we were." So, obviously there's value in embracing the idea of change. So at Bob's request, I had spoken on 3 different tools. And as Bob said, within the context of New Jersey, and it's interesting, it was very good insight. Being we're a federalist government, you have the central government, the U.S. government, but we also have states, and states really control day-to-day actions. And within the state, we were talking about New Jersey, and there are 3 tools that are worthy of consideration. One is authorities, or in the order that Bob said, improvement districts. And improvement districts have been proven to be very effective around the country. In communities as diverse as New York City, if you think about, one of my favorite examples is Bryant Park. I went to NYU when there was an uptown campus. I used to go by Bryant Park in the early 70s, and you didn't want to go near it. An improvement district was created. There was a recognition by the adjacent property owners that there was an asset there that was not being used and was not contributing to the neighborhood. I mean, where Bryant Park was in the early 70s was a place where junkies hung out and drugs were exchanged and nothing else. If you think of Bryant Park now, it's probably one of the public spaces in New York that is in more demand and probably one of the highest rent areas in New York. So it was an improvement district that was the catalyst to that change. If you've ever heard Peter Bitterman, he was kind of the focus of that group. Others are the 42nd Street Partnership in New York, the 34th Street Partnership in New York. And it's been a very effective tool in New York City for change. There's a Center City Partnership in Philadelphia, and there are improvement districts, really, probably hundreds of them around the country, in Seattle, and in about 50 communities in New Jersey. So that is one possible structure that's worthy of consideration, and I can give more detail into how they work. But in essence, it's an assessment on properties within the business community. It doesn't have to be limited to the business community, but historically it focuses on improvements to the business community. And it's an assessment which is then reinvested to improve the business community. The second is authorities, and under state law, authorities often have more powers than municipal government. So it's something that's worthy of consideration. A possibility is doing an improvement authority, an improvement district in conjunction with an authority, because it gives you more resources. I mean, money is kind of the tool that moves things. Let's be realistic about it. And both of those resources have funding sources. And the third is somewhat more esoteric. It's development corporations. In New Brunswick, it's worked effectively because there's some major driving forces, among them the county. It's the county seat of Middlesex County, Robert Wood Johnson Hospital, Rutgers University, and Johnson & Johnson. And they have been made really the financial and motivational supporters of the New Brunswick Development Corporation, DevCo. And maybe it's a combination of the various mechanisms, maybe it's none of them. I don't seek to impose or suggest what you should do. I think the goal of this meeting today is to have some discussion as to how those tools might help serve the consensus of what needs to be addressed and what progress can be made in Princeton. Having said that, worthwhile, Bob?
You're welcome.
We will now have 3 workshops. Bob will be a resource going around to answer any of the questions about how you can do this or do that. I suppose it's really to connect the dots. We've talked for so long about the problems, and we're beginning to talk about the solutions. What are the connections? And what it would be interesting to me, I should say, I'd like to see whether you have in 3 different subjects to get comparable things and learn from each other. So, David, Jim, where's Carlos? Okay. To your tables and choose whatever you wish, and we will come back here at 11 to report back tomorrow. Please move forward so we can have a sense of community. Okay. Each group is free to decide how it wants to proceed. And in the case of the downtown, which will be the first subject, Peter Kahn, who is the scribe for that group, will be presenting. And then I think we'll have a discussion of what was said, and then we'll go on to the next group, which would be housing, and the third group would be mobility, okay? And we'd let it, suppose we did 15 minutes for each, if we can. Okay. Peter, thank you very much.
Okay, well, the participants can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but I think the consensus of our downtown table was that the existing structures are working less than ideally. So people mentioned regulatory complexity and affecting businesses. Palmer Square providing necessary facilities for their part of the downtown, but the rest of the downtown lacking them. The loss of service businesses downtown, high rents that make it impossible for new and small businesses, the necessity again to drive to or commute to malls and out of town for necessities, which is not only inconvenient, but a problem in a sustainability sense. The need to engage Palmer Square and Princeton University, which together comprise a good deal of the downtown, in any solutions to downtown. A system that works for individuals because they vote, but does not work for the interests of downtown businesses, which don't have voting power. Someone said on local government, if it were a business, it would be out of business. Someone told the story of the difficulty of even designing and putting up a sign downtown with the multiple layers of regulatory approval that are necessary. I think a few people did point out the possibility of some improvement downtown with some new personnel in the borough government. Several people talked about zoning improvements that could help, form-based zoning, sub-neighborhood zoning, streamlining construction plan reviews, and so on. But I think overall there was the sense that the existing structures are not solving all the problems that people were beginning to solve the problems that people mentioned. We then talked about a special improvement district as a possible solution. The points made on that, it would provide stable funding for downtown. It could promote mixed use of property. It could provide maintenance. It would or could certainly span the somewhat artificial borders between Princeton Borough and Princeton Township. Point was made that nonprofit institutions, while they are exempt from taxes, are not exempt from the modest assessments that a special improvement district would make on businesses and other institutions, including nonprofits, that would benefit from the district, which is a long way of saying Princeton University could be asked to contribute to this. It could help to improve the traffic situation. It certainly would help businesses navigate a difficult regulatory process. It is not complicated to establish, which is to say the political entities could simply establish it, although better if it had the support of the business community. These special improvement districts have been around for 20 years at least in New Jersey. There are a whole variety of them across the state that do seem to work. And they are not extraordinarily expensive. The costs mentioned to administer such a special improvement district seem to range and provide the basic services that they tend to provide, like maintenance, would run anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000 or $450,000. So affordable. We then talked a little bit about consolidation. I think the point was made that a multi-municipality special improvement district, thus crossing the borders of borough and township, can happen with or without political consolidation, but that a special improvement district probably would encourage a move over time toward full consolidation, that it's kind of a logical step toward that, but consolidation is not necessary. I think it's probably fair to say at our table there was a general sense that consolidation regardless of the special improvement district, would be a sensible thing to have in this larger community, and that if Princeton did it consolidated, it would serve as a kind of model for the rest of the state. So I think that's a reasonable summary. Okay. Who's next, Sheldon?